Hello.
Hi, Professor.
How you doing?
Fine.
Hello.
Hi, Professor. How are you?
I'm okay. How you doing?
Good, good.
Good. Ruba, we've got our usual crew. Daryl says, hey, what's up, Daryl? We'll wait maybe a minute or two, but this is who's usually here. How are you guys doing?
Fine.
Ruba says fine. That's good. Wen Chan gets a thumbs up. Thank you, Wen Chan. Martha's here. Cold. Daryl says he is cold. Daryl, put on a jacket, get inside or something. Is it cold at work? What are they doing?
Professor Jeff, so I have some assignments that has a no score next to it. That means it's not upgraded yet, or am I missing some? Okay.
Yeah, no, if there's no points, it means it hasn't been graded. This week, the last 2 weeks, like I said, I'll talk about grades when we get started here, but I guess we can sort of start. So this week and last week were just crazy in terms of how much stuff I had to grade for essays. So do I want to talk about this now? Yeah, I'll talk about this now. Okay, give me 1 second here. I'll start to share my screen. All right. Okay, so we're talking sort of about grading, and so there's two things to say, right? So if there's no score for a specific assignment, for example, the sentence writing for the poetry chapter of Why Translation Matters, that I haven't graded any of that. Now, for example, I will say I think there's only 6 people who have done that assignment. So I don't usually grade the assignment if only a small group of students have completed the assignment. But there are other things that that I just have not graded yet. So so no, if you don't see points or anything, it doesn't mean there's something wrong. It just means that I haven't graded it yet. So that's the short answer. Now, today I did publish and open up so that everybody can see their grades for the first draft of the narrative writing assignment. So I wanted to talk about that up at the beginning of class today before we get started. I don't even have a PowerPoint today. I'm going to do things a little bit different today. But if you're watching the recording, what is up? I'm going to talk about grades at the beginning. So grades are in, but because Zoom and life and COVID and pandemic, we're getting, I'm optimistic. Things are starting to get better, I think, but it's still kind of crazy. So just so that I had enough time to to grade things in this class and in other classes, the grading for your first draft is pretty minimal, right? So I completed the grades using the assignment rubric. Then on the feedback, and remember, I think we did this, so I didn't put an example paper in here, but let me put on student view. I sort of want to show you how to use that information, and then if you're not sure what you can do to fix your draft to get a higher grade, I want to tell you what the plan there is. So let's see, if we go to grades. Let's see. Where did I put this narrative project? See, my test student has a missing, is still even missing their narrative project here. So let me do this. I'm going to leave student view. I'm going to use a student example. Let's see who's not here. This is a good one. Well, let's see, what's a good student? Use tab. Okay, so for example, some of you, when you go to see your grades, right, you're going to see a few different things. In the document, right, if you click on view feedback, you're going to see really just red and green, some boxes, maybe some notes that I've typed here to give you some specific information. And sometimes there's little notes connected to the green and red boxes. So I want to tell you what that is. So green means good. Green means this is something that I thought was really well done. You did a nice job. If I've put some sentences or a paragraph or anything in a green box, that means this is good, more like this. If you see red text, right, or red boxes, I didn't put any red boxes here. That means that there's some error. There's a problem. It could be a grammar error. It could be a structure error, or it could be that the most common error for these first drafts was about the theme, right? So green means good. Red means something to improve for your second draft. Then sometimes I put additional comments here. Sometimes I was not able to do that. So here is what I'm doing. Now I'm going to show you, this is for writing conference sign-up sheet, and I'm going to put this in the chat since you guys are here with me right now. So what I'm saying is, what I'm going to say just for time and for my own life, your schedule, my schedule, everybody's schedule, if you got a score that you are disappointed or you want a higher grade, but you don't know what to do or how to make your paper better, what I want you to do is click that link. All you'll be able to, you can click the link and then open it and sign in. So I'm having writing conferences so that we can talk one-on-one about your essay and what I want you to fix, what I want you to change, what I want you to revise to resubmit for a higher score. That's going to make my life way easier than trying to, spend an hour or 2 hours with every single essay for every single class that I'm doing. So if you want to hire a score, you can sign up right now, right? I've got office hours tomorrow. That's what this sign up sheet is for. And as always, if you can't come to my office hours on Thursday, send me a text, send me an email, and we will work together. I will work with you, do everything I can when I'm not working or with my family to meet with you, to have a Zoom meeting and talk about your essay and what you should do to revise and resubmit, okay? Now, if you're watching the video in this recording, you're not here. I think someone's in here with me. I don't know if it's Rahila. It is. Hi, Rahila. So if you can sign up for a time right now, right? Like if you're here with me live, you guys, in the Zoom room, you can do this now. But if you're watching in the recording, I'm going to go back to our Canvas page and show you where this lives. So if you're watching in the recording, all you'll do is go to our live support materials. And under the heading for today, March 10th, right, our Zoom recording will be there. But here where it says student hours sign up sheet, I'll close this just so you can see. All you have to do is click it. It'll open in a new tab for you, either on your phone or your computer. And you all, as long as you have the link, you have access to edit. So you can just, all I'm asking you to do is type your student name here and either your cell phone number or your email, so that if if I'm supposed to meet and you're not there, I can email you or text you and say, what's going on? Are you still coming? So all I would do is just put Jeff. And then for me, I share my cell phone. But again, if I don't have your cell phone, or if you don't want to share your cell phone, that's totally fine. just give me your Los Rios Canvas, or really the best email to reach you. So that's all you have to do. Put your name in box 1 and your contact info in box 2, and then I will see you on Thursday at that time. And we can talk more specifically in detail about your paper. Questions from my people who are here about this?
No.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that's all I have to say. I think this is the best way to give personal and specific feedback to students who want it and need it. But again, as I said last week, with everything going online and spending so much more time on the computer for me, it was just taking way too long to give everybody the type of personal feedback that I love to give. But and I think some students love it, some students don't care. If you are one of the students who loves it and wants it, all I'm asking you to do is sign up and come talk to me. Cool. Any questions?
Professor
Yes.
Jeff, question. When I went to grading and I click on the link, it's a narrative project. So I click on the link and they bring me to a screen. It showed the name of my essay. I click on it. Well, I shouldn't click on, I should just click on view feedback, right?
View feedback is that little, I don't have a good way to show you an example of this, forgive me, but yeah, you need to click that little tiny blue, let me see if I can find a picture.
Yes.
Canvas student view feedback. How do I view annotated feedback? This thing, yes, exactly right. Right, so you'll go to the assignment page, you see score, you see comments if I have specific comments, and you click that little view feedback blue box, right? And then there's a little option too, it's 2 arrows if you want to make it bigger so that it takes up the whole screen, because again, sometimes Canvas makes things very, very difficult, but it would look like this, right? Once you click on view feedback.
My question is, there's no green or red line. The only red line is by my name and the class name. I don't see anything like you show on the sample that has a blue and red line around the program.
Then sign up for a time and we'll talk about it one-on-one.
Okay, fine.
Cool. Anybody else? Questions?
Excuse me, Professor.
Yeah, Rahila.
When we sign for meeting tomorrow for office hours, we sign our name, cell phone number or email, but where we should write that time?
Well, the time's right here. So date and time. So my office hours, I'm asking students to sign up for 10-minute meetings. So there's the time right here, right? Thursday, 3:11, 2:30, 2:40, 2:50, 3 o'clock, 3:10. So all that time's here in this. You see where my blue box is moving?
Okay, thank you.
Great question, Rahila. Thank you. Great question. Anybody else? Cool. Well, today's a lots of business today because we got grades, business for the grading of the first paper. And then the next thing I want to do is introduce the poetry writing project. Some of you might have seen that it got published today. So I want to introduce the instructions and talk about that. And then after that, we're going to talk about rhythm and meter and rhyme and stuff like that. So more poetry today after we keep talking business. So again, I know I've asked, but this is the last time I will ask, last call, questions about looking at the feedback for the narrative project. Last call. All right.
Do you see my name there? I just put my name in the sheet.
Yep,
it's there, right?
And you should be able to see it on my screen share right now too, right?
Yes, great, okay.
Yep.
Great.
Yep. One good thing about Google Docs. Cool. So I'll see some of you guys tomorrow, which is fantastic. And if you're not here and watching the recording, please sign up for a time if you want to talk. Sign up for a time if you want to talk, or email or text me. All right, so I'm going to change back to student view here in Canvas. And I'm going to go to assignments. And I'm gonna go to overdue assignments. Test student has the test student that they have the teacher sort of practice with is overdue, but I'm not gonna worry about that. Upcoming assignments, the poetry project. Let's talk about it. So I've got 3 links here and I'm gonna show you what they are, but here's the instructions, due dates, and the rubric, all the information you need for sort of what I'm asking you to do and how I'm going to grade it and all that good stuff. But let's start with the poetry project assignment sheet. Again, all of the information here, you guys, instructions, option A, option B, all that stuff is exactly what's in this document. But as I've said, I think 3, 4, 5 times, I like to open the document and see it in the document. Okay. So here's what we're doing. Poetry project. And I'll just read through, stop me anytime. So for this writing assignment, I'm asking you to write about poetry. I am also going to give you the opportunity to write poetry in English if you would like to do so. I forget, someone asked, I think last week, like, are we gonna have to write poetry? You can choose to. So because I'm giving you choice here, you've got 2 sort of ways to do this. Option A, option B, okay? Option A, you write 2 original poems in English, your own poems. Or a student asked this last semester, if you want to translate a poem from your first language into English, that's fine too, right? Just like Edith Grossman says, a translated poem is a new poem. You know, the person who translates the poem is the author of the poem. So if you want to translate a poem from another language into English, beautiful, that's great too. Now, this poem must be at least 12 lines long. So that means if you're going to write 2 poems, right, I want you to do at least 24 lines of poetry. Then I want you to write 500 words analyzing each poem. So that's a total of 1,000 words of poetic analysis. Now we're going to basically for this project do what we've been doing for the last 2-3 weeks, right? So you're going to analyze your own poems for any of the poetic elements that we've analyzed, including alliteration, consonants, assonance, lines, caesura, enjambment, stanza, simile, metaphor. Today, we're going to talk about measure, meter, rhythm, and rhyme. You could write about those, right? So option A, write 2 poems, write 500 words analyzing one of the poems for any of the poetic elements we've talked about, and write another 500 words analyzing the second poem for those elements as well. Okay, option B, choose one of the poems in the ESLW 350 poetry document to analyze. I'm going to show you where that is next. First, you're going to write a 500-word response to this poem. Now, remember, response is different than analysis. So a response is what we did that first day of class when we talked about poetry, which is how did it make you feel? Why did it make you feel that way? Which words, images, or sounds created this effect on you, right? So this is a much more sort of casual and relaxed type of writing. This is really just telling me what the poem felt like, or what it made you think about, or what you think it might mean, okay? So then after that 500-word response to the poem, then you're gonna write 1,000 words to analyze the poetic elements of that poem. Same things that I'm asking people to analyze in option A, right? Alliteration, consonants, assonance, lines, caesura, enjambment, stanza, simile, metaphor, rhyme, rhythm, meter. You can analyze the poem for any of those elements, right? But 500 words, your personal response, 1,000 words analyzing the sort of structure of the poem. So for option A, 2 original poems that you write or translate, and you write 1,000 words. For option B, you choose a poem and then you write a total of 1,500 words. Now I'm going to show you where this poetry document lives in Canvas. And then while I'm doing this, again, last semester, someone asked, okay, Jeff, if we don't like the poems that are in the document, right? Can we choose our own poem in English, right? Can we find an English poem that maybe we like Ruba's poem from Agatha Christie? If you wanted to analyze another poem, that's fine. That's totally fine too. But I'm trying to give you things that make life easy. So actually, I need to do one thing here. Assignment sheet, help video, example. Bear with me, I need to add one more thing so that you guys know where to find the poetry document. While I'm doing some stuff in Canvas, any questions right away before, because that was a lot of info. So questions right away.
Just a quick question. So do you, my confusion is like when we analyze the poem, how are we gonna structure it? Like, if there's any way, like, show some example, how do we need to structure an essay format? Like,
yeah,
analyzing.
I'll show you I'll that's next, but I'm not that worried about that, honestly, because the first essay for this class is very, very structured. This middle essay is really kind of relaxed. I'm much more interested in you applying the ideas of poetic analysis as opposed to writing a perfect analysis paper. The last paper, after spring break, we're only going to talk about the novel, right? So that third essay is going to be a lot more structured. So this one, so there's two answers. One is I'll show you an example, but it's much more important to me that you are able to analyze the poem correctly using the things that we've been studying, as opposed to, did you create the perfect structure of a poetic analysis essay? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have a question.
Please.
Is there any specific format for this essay?
I'll show you. I think that's what we were asking there too. Hold on one second. Not exactly, right? Let's see.
So is this one more like a free writing?
Well, it's not exactly free writing, right? But like, I mean, I think what I said, I'll show you the example that I put in Canvas here, but imagine like if you're going to do option B, right? If you're going to find someone else's poem, just imagine that you write a paragraph, and a paragraph is about 200 words, 300 words, 300 words about consonants in this poem, and then a new paragraph. And that paragraph is about a line break. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what I said last semester, is a paragraph for each of the poetic elements that you're going to analyze.
Okay.
Images, course materials, photo. Where did this go? Sorry, you guys. This is what happens when I'm trying to multitask. Multitasking is never a good idea. Oh, good. I'll put it here. Okay. Right, so people already sort of, great questions, right, about how are we going to do this? What's the structure? What should it look like? So that's what I wanted to start with. Okay, so when I say here in option B, right, and I say in option B, choose one of the poems in the ESLW 350 poetry document. What I mean is, if you go to the poetry project page, right, click this link that's there now that says ESLW 350 poems. Sorry. That's not correct. Forgive me, you guys. I'm sorry. This is what I mean about multitasking. Let me fix that link. That's the one I wanted. Thank you all for your patience. Okay, great. So I'm going to go back. So when you click this link here that says ESLW 350 poems, click it. And the very first document, well, the second link here, this document says ESLW 350 poems. And if you click it, you can open it on the page, you can download the doc. But here's the document. And there's all kinds of poems in here. So you can read through them. Some of these are translations, some are originally in English. Lots of different poems that I'll give you time to read through on your own. Okay, so this is for you guys to look at. If you want some suggestions, start here. If you have a poem that you really like or you want to do something else, that's fine too. Okay, questions about that, about where to find some of the example poems? Any questions before I keep going? Okay, so now other people were saying, okay, how do I do this, right? Like, what should this look like? What's an example of this? And on the Poetry Project page, there are 2 other links, right? And one is Poetry Project Help video. If you click the video, this is a YouTube video that I made. It's about 30 minutes, so it's a longer video. But in this video, I'm sort of explaining exactly how to go through the video, how to do this project, right? Let me see, let me get to the example. Great, so about 10 minutes in here, what I do here, if you're looking at the screen, I am sort of showing, I take a small little poem as an example, and then I start to type and show you how I would do that, how I would go through it, sort of what the essay might look like, right? So here's me typing in live time. And then by the end, I've sort of got how I would structure and organize this. And that, excuse me. So that the link to the video is here, Poetry Project Help video. And then where it says Poetry Project Example Incomplete Draft. So in the video, I'm sort of typing up this Word document, right? This document here that I put on the page that says Poetry Project Example, this is that document that you see me typing and creating, right? As I'm showing you in the video. So I don't know if I explained this clearly because like usual, I have like too many ideas, but the intention is so that there's a lot of resources and things for you that will help you when you're doing this on your own. Again, so what I'd say is start by watching the video. I know it's 30 minutes, but give it time. You can see last semester, 68 views. I think people watched it many times because I'm trying to give you specific examples of how to do this. And then if you want, you can click on the Poetry Project example document. You could even use it as a template. I don't care, that's totally fine. But that's what all those links are, right? So the link, here's the assignment sheet. That's this. The poems, those are the examples if you need to find those are examples of English poems. You can start there if you're looking at option B. Then there's the video, that's this. And then there's the Poetry Project example. So it's not a full draft, but it's definitely should be enough to give you a place to start. Okay, I do want to talk about grading and all that stuff. So I've got the dates and the rubric and stuff, but any questions before we talk points? About how to do this, what to do. What's this YouTube video? Any questions about what I just talked about? Cool. Let's talk about points and due dates. Right, so the first draft. Remember, this is one of the only assignments with a due date for this class. As a result, barring truly extraordinary circumstances, late work will not be accepted. But again, as you know from the first essay, there was plenty of late work and it was still accepted. This is just if people are really late, this gives me the option to say no. But this is due March 24th. That is 2 weeks from today. That is the last day we meet before spring break. Then just like last time, you will have a week after my first score to revise, resubmit, meet with me, talk to me, and figure out if you want to revise and resubmit for a higher score. So again, 2 weeks from today for this project. Grading. This paper is worth 200 points. So how do those points come down? 120 points. So as you can see, the most important thing here is for poetic analysis. That means your writing effectively analyzed the poems using some of the poetic terms we've studied this semester, including alliteration, consonants, assonance, line, caesura, and gem, and stanza, simile, metaphor. And like I said, today, if you feel comfortable, we can talk after today. If you feel comfortable, you can analyze rhythm and meter and rhyme. This can feel scarier to students, so I don't put it as something you must analyze, but if you want to, please feel free. 50 points for originality and effort. Your writing shows originality, careful thought, and obvious effort. I'll tell you right now, if you're with me or you're watching the video, if you write your own poems, if you take that chance, you're going to get the full 50 points. You can still get 50 points if you choose option B, right? It just means that your work has to show that you've thought about it and made a good effort. Editing, 20 points. Your writing is free of major grammatical and mechanical errors, things like capitalization, punctuation, spelling, structures, verbs. And word count, right? You're writing the minimum word count. So only 10 points for reaching the minimum word count on this essay. And remember, option A, the minimum word count is 1,000. Option B, the minimum word count is 1,500 words. So those are the instructions, the due dates, and the grading rubric for this project. What questions do we have that I can answer?
I have a question.
Please.
If you write your own poem, is that any topic? It's fine, right?
Absolutely anything.
Okay.
Absolutely anything. The only thing I'm asking, if you write your own poem, is that it's 12. They're 12 lines each. Or again, last semester I think someone asked, "Oh, if I write a really long poem, can I write one poem with 24 lines?" Okay, if you want to go for it, go for it. But really, that's what I'm saying. I want 24 lines of poetry, and then about what or any style. Does it rhyme? Not. I don't. Whatever you want to do. Whatever you want to do. Thank you, Wen Chen. Anybody else questions about the poetry project? First draft 2 weeks from today. Any questions? Cool. I have a question for you then. Especially for my people here. Well, only for my people here, really, but what would be more useful to you guys right now? Would it be more useful for me to play the video, like the YouTube video where I am showing you how to do this now, since you guys are all here now? Do you want to watch that now and then we can talk about that? Or do you want to do that on your own time? You know, you're my little tiny group that comes to class. So what would be best for you guys?
I think if we go through with you the video explaining the structures and respond and analyze section, that'd be helpful. But
one vote for watching the YouTube video. Anybody else?
I vote for watching video.
Okay, Wenchen, I'd love to hear from everybody, actually. Yeah, give me the chat or tell me. Well, that's 2 votes for watch the video. Where'd my chat go? I saw the chat and it disappeared. Probably now. Daryl says probably now. Okay, we're getting to consensus here. Marta says yes, the video. Okay. That's Ruba. You want to put your vote in? I think we've got a majority now, but.
No, I saw the video. It was good. But if you have some notes or something to add, you can say it now.
Got it. Ruba, Noor, Daryl, Winshin. Rahila, you're the only one who hasn't voted.
I'm agree with Ruben now.
Okay, let's do that. Let me make sure I share my audio. All right. Okay, this is a first, you guys. I've never played one of my own videos that I made in class. That feels really weird, but I'm just gonna do it. Okay, I'm gonna play the video and I'll turn on subtitles. That's why I love YouTube. They do it automatically. So I'll turn on the subtitles and yeah, I'll just let it play. And then after you watch the video, we can talk about it. I'll answer any specific questions that you have. I'm here, right? You'll see me up in the corner and stuff. But it'll just be me in the video talking to you guys. So actually, I'm gonna turn my own screen, my own video off while I play the video. But I'm still here. I'm still here. All right. Hey everybody, Professor Jeff here. So I am going to record a quick video just to help explain sort of how to approach or how to go And I'm going to show you sort of an example of how I would also sort of create a mini outline for myself or sort of build a structure in a Word document. I know a lot of times students feel like the hardest part to begin any writing assignment, whether it's, you know, one paragraph for an easy assignment or, you know, a longer 2 or 3 page essay, the hardest part is starting. You know, looking at that blank page and where to begin is really tricky, especially if it's something like poetry that is a new skill for you. So that's what I'm going to do today. So, you know, the first thing to do with any kind of writing project, especially one that has sort of, you know, more than a page or two, is to look at the instruction sheet. So I just want to go through that again here. So this is our poetry project, and the instructions say, because this is really going to guide everything that we do, and especially for me, if I'm a student, you know, when I was a student, looking at the assignment sheet is going to give me some good information about how to organize my own writing, right? So instructions for this writing assignment, I'm asking you to write about poetry. I'm also going to give you the opportunity to write poetry in English if you would like to do so. So you can choose either option A or B. So of course, if you're looking at this, your first choice, the most important thing you're going to do before you do anything is choose, are you going to do option A or option B? So option A here says write 2 original poems in English. The poems must be at least 12 lines long, and then you can write 500 words to analyze each poem, so a total of 1,000 words. You should analyze your own poems for any of the poetic elements we've analyzed, including alliteration, consonants, assonance, line, caesura, enjambment, stanza, simile, or metaphor. Now again, all reading can be thoughtful, strategic, and active reading. So for me, I know the things that I like the most when I think about poetry are simile and metaphor. So I could highlight this for myself. Okay, I know I want to talk about similes and metaphors in the poems. I also really like these sounds, alliteration, consonants, and assonance. So that's something I want to talk about. Now, again, when you do this kind of active reading strategy, you're just sort of priming your brain. You're getting your brain ready for when you start to actually write. Okay, option A, write 2 poems, analyze your own poems, and the things that I would want to analyze would be alliteration, consonants, assonance, simile, and metaphor. Option B, choose any of the poems in the ESLW 350 poetry document to analyze, or choose your own. And in fact, today I'm going to show a poem that's not in our list. First, write a 500-word response to the poem. Okay, so I'm going to highlight 500-word response. How did it make you feel? Why? Which words, images, and sounds created this effect? Okay, so if I do this, I'm going to highlight which words, images, and sounds. I'm sort of telling myself when it's time to start writing, I know that I'm going to need to write about words, images, and sounds to create this feeling that I had. Then write a 1,000-word analysis of the poetic elements that we've studied this semester, including alliteration, consonants, assonance, all that stuff. So I could do the same thing here. I'm going to want to talk about consonants, alliteration, and assonance. And of course, I love similes and metaphors. And for this example today, I'm going to show you option B, right? I'm going to choose option B. So that means I need to write 1,500 words, and I'm going to sort of show you how I would do that. Now, the next thing that you should always do, any assignment, this class, any other class in the future, is hopefully your teacher has provided you with a grading rubric or some information about what they are looking for the grade. So I always want to go and look at the rubric before I even start writing. So we see here's the rubric, here's our grades. Okay, it's worth 150 points, and then I see 50, 50. Okay, so a whole third of the paper is going to be the poetic analysis. So writing effectively, analyze the poems using some of the terms we've studied. Okay, so what this is telling me is that a third of my grade is about analyzing and at least talking a little bit about these poetry keywords. So again, whether you're in a Word document or just writing on your own, I'd say this is important. Make sure to talk about these specific aspects of poetic analysis. It's worth a third of my grade. Originality and effort. Your writing shows originality, careful thought, and obvious effort. Now, again, this is my rubric, so I'll just be honest with you as always. This is one that's a little less specific, but again, I said this to you, and I'll say it to every class I think I ever teach. Usually your teacher knows if you spent 10 minutes writing a paragraph. You know, it's hard to tell if a student spent 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours or 5 hours. That gets a little tricky, but your teachers usually know if you just did it in 10 minutes. So this is really what I'm talking about here. So effort and originality means, did you think about it? Did you really care about your work? And again, you know me, at least in this class, if you care about your work, I care much more about that than getting the one perfect true or right answer, right? So I would just highlight this word effort here. Editing, your writing is free of major grammatical and mechanical errors, including capitalization, punctuation, spelling, sentence structure, and verb forms. And of course, in a class like this, I'm also going to make a note here for myself, a new comment. Do not stress this too much in the first draft. I can revise for a higher grade and focus on editing at that time. And that's true for any ESL class or any time that you're revising work, particularly in a, in a language, English language class, as opposed to an English literature class. And then length, your writing met the minimum word count. So I got to hit 1,500 words to make sure I get my full points. Okay, so now I feel like I know what the assignment is asking me to do. So the first thing that I would do, truly as a student, is I would open up a blank document. And the first thing I do is change everything into the correct formatting. So that's Times New Roman, 12-point font. And I put my name. And of course, you're going to put the teacher's name. And this is ESLW 350. And I'm just going to use today's date. So today's November 11th, 2020. But if you're watching this a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now, or whatever, put the date that it actually is. And for the title, we can just call this Poetic Analysis. So the other big sort of tip I have here is when you're writing, start to organize your writing on the page as soon as you can. So again, I'm going to change the paragraph here because I know we want double spaced. No other spacing other than line space double 0 0. Okay. Now, if I go back, and here to go back, I'm just hitting Alt-Tab, by the way. Keyboard shortcuts are really are your friend. So you can move the mouse and, open it up down here, but you can just hit hold Alt on your keyboard and hit Tab. This is Windows stuff. I'm not a Mac person, forgive me. But remember, I was looking at option B. That means I need a 500-word response, and then I need to do my poetic analysis. So I'm going to start here and just say response, analysis. And if I look at what I highlighted, I already sort of said alliteration, consonants, and assonants, and simile and metaphor are the things I want to talk about. So I could just start something here that says sounds and something here that says simile and metaphor. So again, as I'm reading the poem to begin my poetic analysis, I'm sort of taking notes in live time. And as I'm taking notes, I'm putting them into some kind of structure, into some kind of outline for myself as I go. Now, again, if you took another class with another professor here at ARC and they are all about doing a formal outline or a structured outline, that's totally fine. There's no one right way to do this, but I think it's important for me to show you how I would do it, and then hopefully it inspires you. If you want to try my way, awesome. If you want to take, 10% of what I do and keep that and do something else for the rest, that's great. So the idea here, again, I just want to make sure is not for you to copy me, everything I do, but for you to see an example of how you can do this. All right. So response, analysis, sounds, simile, and metaphor. And now I'm ready to look at the poem. So I've got the poem here on the desktop. And again, this is literally how I would do this, you all. I would keep it so that I can see the poem and my Word document at the same time. I only have a tiny little laptop, so it's not like the easiest thing in the world to do, but it's still really helpful. It's worth it because you can sort of take notes, as you're reading the poem. So the name of the poem that I'm reading and going to analyze is called The Voice, and the author's name is not here, but it's called Shel Silverstein. So I could start by saying something like that. I am going to analyze a poem titled The Voice by Shel Silverstein. That's it. All right, welcome back to part 2. My video got disconnected here, but we can pick up just where we left off and continue. So I was just about to read The Voice by Shel Silverstein and start to analyze. So The Voice. There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. Okay, so again, if I were doing this by myself, I'd probably read through it silently again. There's a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. So one thing that stands out for me right away is teacher, preacher. In line number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's in line 5. That's an internal rhyme within the line, right? That's really interesting. And then, of course, you, long, me, wrong. We do have rhymes at the end of the line. Long, wrong, decide, inside. So we do have rhyming on line 2, 4, 6, and 8. And this does give some rhythm to the poem. Good. The other thing is I'm sort of, you can see as I'm taking notes here, I'm sort of moving around the paper in a way that makes sense to me. So I started with sounds because that is the thing that I sort of like to think about. But the other thing that I'm going to sort of just free write here is one word that really stood out to me is whisper. In line 2, the speaker, the persona, whatever, the person who's speaking this poem, the poet, says that the voice whispers inside of them. I like this image. I love this image, but I don't know if I always agree that my voice whispers. Sometimes it's yelling at me. Sometimes it's very, very quiet, even quieter than a whisper. Great. So you see there's some formatting stuff, but I can sort of fix this in live time. What else stands out? So I guess I'm going to read it again and then just sort of think, what's my big overall reaction? You know, I did have a response. I did have a reaction, a response to that word whisper. I don't know why. It just feels very powerful for me. But let's sort of see overall. There's a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. I also like how the poet uses quotation marks in lines 3 and 4 to tell us literally what the little voice, what the voice inside is saying. So I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. That makes sense to me. I definitely do. So I do agree. So I do agree with that. That's another sort of response I have to the poem. What's right for you? So then we get in the first stanza. Well, there's not a stanza. This is all one stanza. But the first 4 lines are kind of part 1 and then part 2, right? Part 1 introduces the voice and what it says. Then part 2 is almost like advice. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. So no teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice inside. So again, a question I could ask myself for this response is, do I agree that I should listen to the voice inside instead of teachers, preachers, parents, etc.? Maybe sometimes. Not all the time. And then I'm just sort of having a question as I'm analyzing this. Why do I think the author is telling the reader to listen to their inner voice? Why is this good, important? Okay. I'm going to save this. I realize I hadn't done this. Poetry analysis, part 1. I'll save this to the desktop. All right, so just real quick, word count. So the instructions say I need to write 500 words of a response. So even just my first thinking about this, I've got 141 words, right? You can see the word count down here at the bottom of the page. So I've already got 141 words. That's a pretty good start, you know, in just 10 minutes or so. So now I do want to go back to this analysis part. And again, you guys, this is how I would write something like this. I jump around. I do not work in like a straight line all the time. I do jump around. So the sounds that I like to said preacher, teacher, preacher. Then I said there's this rhyming scheme in lines 2 and 4. Now I do want to think about simile and metaphor. There is a voice inside of you that whispers. The voice that speaks. So the voice, and that's the title of the poem. The voice is a metaphor, I think, for something. What is it? My mind? My soul? My conscience? It does seem like the poet is implying that there is something special about this one voice, just for me. I think that's another feeling I get from this metaphor of the voice inside of us. I think he's sort of saying that there's something special that only we think about, only we feel, only we know. So really, there's only one big metaphor here. And I guess the question that if I were going to keep writing about the metaphor in this paper would be, what is the voice a metaphor for? Like I said, I'm sort of asking the question, what is it? My mind, my soul, my conscience? He talks about teachers and preachers. So is this connected to religion or not to religion? Is this connected to my parents and friends? What's that relationship? That's another sort of question that I'm having. So that'd be something that I could write about in this metaphor section as well. And again, because this is a poetic analysis, I could say in line 5, you know, why does the author talk about this? Just listen to the voice. And sort of at the end now, I'm also thinking at the end of the poem, in line 8, the persona, the speaker of the poem, tells us to just listen to the voice that speaks inside. So just listen. Do I do everything the voice tells me to do? Maybe sometimes I listen, but then do something different? Yeah, I don't know. Again, these are all sort of questions that I would start to ask myself before I really, you know, started writing. So this sort of way that I'm doing this to show you guys is, you know, you ask yourself this question and then maybe just below start to answer, right? Start to answer that own question. In my opinion, I do think it is important to listen to my own inner voice. For example, when I moved to South America to live and teach in Colombia, many people in my life told me that I should not go. And that is true. A lot of people said it's not safe, or you're too old, or, you know, a lot of people said, why would you leave America? Why would you go to Colombia? So I don't know. That was something that just came to me as an example of how I would connect to this voice poem. Hey everybody, Professor Jeff back again for the final section here. So as I was saying, you know, we've spent just about 20 minutes now. It's only been 20 minutes. And if you look down here at our word count, we've got 338 words. You know, we've got already, you know, almost a third of the words we need for the assignment. And really, again, my goal for this type of activity is to show you how to sort of brainstorm so that you can know what to do to start writing next, right? So after you do something like this, you know, you're not going to submit a paper that looks like this, but at least you have something on the page. And how I found this process when I was a student is you're going to keep a lot of these words, right? Maybe, of course, you don't keep all these questions in, but they show up, they turn into statements, they turn into opinions, they turn into examples that you talk about, you know, when you have your final answers, sort of final answers, when you have your draft that you're ready to submit. Yeah, I guess the only other thing I'd say about poems as an example, and you could, you know, go to YouTube again and just look at people doing all types of sound analysis or poetic analysis. You'll see lots of people giving good examples for how to do an analysis of the sounds of a poem. But I'd say, again, if you're looking for something simple, we could look at consonants, assonance, and alliteration. So let's see, is there any alliteration? There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. Yeah, there's not a lot of, if any, alliteration. There's some consonants. This is, you know, this is right, this is wrong. Those sounds are kind of repeating in here. I do think, actually, you know, I wrote down simile and metaphor, but maybe when you're doing this kind of process, you want to talk about lines, because there is something really interesting going on with the line breaks again in part 2, right? There's a voice inside of you, enjambment, that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. Now, if I go back and analyze this, I think that the you here, this enjambment, is to get the rhyme on line 2 and 4, right? There is a voice inside of you that whispers all day long. I feel that this is right for me. I know that this is wrong. So the enjambment here at the end of line 1 allows line 2 to basically be the same length, the same rhythm as line 4 that gives us that nice rhyme. Now again, you see how sounds and lines do go together. So maybe this is sounds and lines, you know. And I make a note, the enjambment on line 1 allows for line 2 and 4 to end with the same rhythm and rhyme scheme, you know. Then there's more weird enjambment in the second, you know, in part 2. No teacher, preacher, parent, friend, or wise man can decide what's right for you. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. And actually, this is sort of a caesura here, this dash. What's right for you, just listen to. So here the caesura tells us to slow down on you, and then the enjambment tells us to slow down on to. And here actually, by following the punctuation, we get a little bit of a rhyme here. Again, another internal rhyme like teacher, preacher, you and to. So there's a lot going on with enjambment and caesura in lines 5 through 8. The dash before you tells the reader to slow down, and that helps the reader find the rhyme, the internal line rhyme between you and to. It's also interesting because this dash here, this caesura gives us, again, this is like that advice begins, right? Just listen to the voice inside. So what's right for you? Just listen to. It's almost like that pause allows the writer, the persona, to switch and start to give advice to the listener. And that's a different thing as well. Just listen to the voice that speaks inside. I think the other thing I'd notice is that lines 1 and 8 both talk about the voice. So there is a kind of cycle or circle, circle repetition of the key theme, image, metaphor at the beginning and the end of the poem. Cool. Yeah. So again, I'm going to stop the video here now. But again, in less than 30 minutes, you guys, we've sort of taken notes. We've made a sort of outline for ourselves to write more deeply about. And we've got 425 words, right? So I'm not expecting you all to be able to do this in 25 minutes, but I do want to show you that you don't need to think too hard. A weird thing to say in a college class maybe, but you don't need to think too hard about this type of activity, right? I like to reward action. So if you do this, if you go through your poem and sort of take notes, all this work shows up in the final product. It really, really does. And it's much better than staring at a blank screen, staring at the poem. Oh my God, what does Jeff want me to write? I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to say? Who cares about what you're supposed to do, right? Just start taking notes. And by the way, again, if you've already put everything into, Times New Roman, 12-point font, you've started to use the same structure, you've got a lot of good work done. So anyway, that's how I would do this. That's how I did this when I was a grad student. And I hope that you found this video useful and helpful as you prepare to do your own poetic analysis. The final thing that I'll say is, remember, I am not looking for you to give me the one perfect right answer. I don't care about what you think you should say. What I want you to do is tell me how the poem made you feel and why it made you feel that way. If you do that, you're on your way to a great grade. If you say this poem made me think about my grandmother, beautiful. Even more beautiful, tell me which words, which lines, why, If you want to do a deep analysis of the sounds of the poem, do that. I love that stuff too. But the most important thing is for you to tell me how the poem made you feel, what it made you think about, and then specifically tell me which lines, which words, which sounds made you feel that way. That's the most important thing that we're practicing with this activity. So thank you for watching this video. I hope that you found it helpful as you get started, and I'm really excited to see your papers when you are done. Thanks, everybody. All right. Like I said, weird to watch my own video. What do we got? Questions, ideas, what'd you notice? Especially people who are wondering, how am I going to do this? What did that help? What questions do we still have? What's the best? How can I help you?
I have an idea about writing, how to write. In Word, they can put, instead of portrait orientation, we can use landscape orientation and use two column. So the first column, you will put the poem and line the poem, number the lines. Okay. And then on the right side, you will put the analysis. Not a table, just like a column.
Okay.
This is in page layout orientation, landscape orientation.
Yeah, I've got the landscape orientation. Oops. So this is one way. So again, I'm multitasking here, so I'm going to just talk. So Ruba is giving a suggestion for sort of how to lay out the page or a way. So again, there were questions about structure and all that stuff of this essay, right? And I love this, Ruba. Like if having a landscape orientation and having columns and doing a sort of, the poem on one side, analysis on the other side, if that makes sense to you for this assignment.
Yes, this is for the writer and for the reader, because we, each time we write, we need to look at the poem.
Got it. Love it. So Ruba, Daryl, I was just checking the chat. Daryl's saying he likes your idea, Ruba. He likes your idea. Great. So yeah, on one side you could do the poem over here. So what? Where's the voice? I think I just wanted to show sort of as an example here. I think I have it. Poetry project.
I can insert it as a picture.
You could. Yeah, you definitely could. You absolutely could. Got it? Yeah, so there's the poem. So yeah, you could insert it as a picture. Right, and so there it is on one side. So there's the poem. And then if you want, how do you do columns, Ruba? Do you use the ruler up here? Or how do you form columns?
And maybe an insert, there is column.
Yeah, you could do it too. I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it too, but yeah, oops. Now I'm doing Microsoft Word stuff. Cool, I love it. So Ruba's just got a sort of like really helpful and creative suggestion for how to organize the page so that you can analyze the poem in a way that makes sense to you. And again, this is great. Like I said, the first essay, we spent a lot of time talking about the structure and what I wanted. And this is just a different type of writing assignment, right? So instead of thinking about the structure of a poetic analysis essay, what I'm really asking you to focus on is responding to poetry and then starting to analyze the poems, right? And like I said, when it comes to literary analysis and the structure of literary analysis, we'll do that after spring break when we read the novel. Great.
And after finishing this page, do the same on the second page. We put on all the pages, we put the poem on the left side.
Got it. I love it. I love Ruba's. I'm so, I don't know. I'm just, Ruba's creativity is always, I'm always happy to hear sort of the way you approach things, Ruba. It's really, really creative, really interesting, really wonderful. Cool. Anybody else? Well, you guys are lucky. You got my suggestion. You got Ruba's suggestion. Any questions about how to do the project or assignment, or what questions do we still have after the video?
So, Professor?
Yep. Go ahead, Daryl.
Okay. So I just wanted to clarify. So if you wanted to decide to do the option A, which you will have to create 2 poems, the 1,000-word count, that would be for both of them or for each of the poems?
Total 1,000. So yeah, my suggestion would be 500 each, right? So you write your poem and then you analyze the sounds or whatever, then you analyze those poems. Yeah, so 500 for each poem. For
each, okay. So would it, so if you decide to do 1 poem with 24 lines, then that would be the 1,000 count for the whole thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I want to be clear here. Again, I'm not counting every single individual word here, but just to be clear, and that it's on the recording, the 1,000 words is for the analysis, right? It's not the poem is not part of the 1,000 words. So you write the 2 poems or you write the 1 poem. I want 1,000 words of analysis.
Just a quick question, Professor. So we don't have any theme for this kind of essay, right? I'm just kind of new to this. We don't have, like we did for the narrative, this is just more like the one you show on the video, that kind of format.
That's it, right? 500 words where you, if you did not, right? If you're analyzing someone else's poem, just 500 words, and I'll show you in Canvas, you'll get to practice this, but really simple response, right? A general response to the poem. Like I said, how to make you feel and why, and then 1,000 words of analysis. And like I said, I think the easiest way to do it, like I showed in the video, is when I made my little outline, okay, here's an outline about the lines. Okay, so maybe I have a paragraph about the lines, and then another paragraph about assonance, or another paragraph about metaphor, right? So that's as much as I'm worried about the way you organize this essay. You know what I mean?
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. What else? Okay, I'll show you in Canvas too. So I posted one other thing. So we have this, so we have 2 more weeks, right? We have 2 more weeks before spring break. And I don't know if you're as excited as I am, but I could use a break. So in the next 2 weeks, there's only two new things in Canvas, right? One is the poetry project. So that's for you to do before spring break. I did put one other assignment in Canvas that'll give you some practice, especially if you are going to do option B and you're going to do a response to someone else's poem. So I'm going to go back to student view here in Canvas. And if you go to assignments, you could also go to discussions because this is going to show up as a discussion. But here it says lesson 13, responding to poetry. So again, this will give you a chance to practice this type of writing. And, you know, if you do this, the sooner you do this, it's possible for me to be able to grade this and give you feedback and give you some points before, you know, before the first draft is due. So if you want feedback and then, if you want to try this type of writing and then get a grade on it, the sooner you do this assignment, the better. So here's, you know, how you're going to practice this. So there's 3 videos below. Each video is just about one specific sort of famous American poem. There's another Emily Dickinson poem. We read The Hope is the Thing with Feathers that Perches in the Soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Same poet, but a different poem. Then there's a poem called Let America Be America Again by Langston Hughes, a very famous and important Black poet from New York City in the 1920s and 30s. And then there's a poem called A Noiseless Patient Spider by Walt Whitman. So I want you to watch these videos. If you only watch one, that's fine. And then respond to the prompt. So this says, which of the 3 poems is most memorable for you? Why? What does this poem mean to you? What key images, metaphors, or rhythms are connected to this meaning, right? So this discussion assignment is really just a chance for you to practice that response part of option B for the poetry project, right? And this discussion activity, you know, more examples of reading poems, and in the YouTube videos, I think all of them are under 10 minutes. People sort of talk a little bit about the poems. There's a little bit of analysis in the videos as well. Yeah, just more practice doing this type of writing and responding to poems. So this discussion activity, lesson 13, responding to poetry, and the poetry project, that's it. There's nothing else new going into Canvas before spring break. And then, like I said, after spring break, we're going to be done with poems and we're going to start to read one of my favorite books of all time. Any questions about this, about the Canvas discussion activity, what I'm asking you to do? Any questions? Cool. I'm curious, can you guys, anyone who wants to type in the chat, do you guys have a feeling who, if you're going to do option A or option B? What are you guys thinking?
For me, it would be B.
Okay. North is B.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Ruba, I saw you, but you were muted. Are you thinking A or B? B? I'm trying, okay, I had to read your lips. Okay, Ruba says B. Anybody gonna do A? Last semester, I think I had 6 students do option A. Well, whatever you wanna do. Like I said, if you wanted to translate a poem into English, that can be a really exciting, fun thing to do. So just put that out there, If you wanna do it, go for it. I'm now sort of thinking about if there's anything else I wanted to share or say. I guess I have one more question. Does it feel like, do you all feel like you have enough? We've talked about poetry enough. Do you feel like you have enough of this sort of parts of poetry to analyze between the sounds, the lines, the stanzas, simile and metaphor? Do you feel like that's enough or too much? Or I'm just curious how you're feeling about the analysis part, especially if you're talking about doing B, you're going to analyze someone else's poems. Do you know what to look for? Do you know what to analyze using some of the things we've talked about? Or I think you guys are tired. What's the best use of time now? Here's my question then, I guess, for people who are still with me. Do we want to talk about rhythm and rhyme and keep introducing even more stuff about poems, or do we want to practice what we've already studied the last 3 weeks? That's my question. Practice what we've already studied or keep doing new stuff? That's my question for you guys.
Probably practice, Professor.
Daryl says practice.
Practice is good.
Talk about rhythm and rhyme.
I know Ruba wants rhythm and rhyme. Ruba, we might have to do a Zoom meeting where we talk about this, because rhythm and rhyme is even harder than the stuff we've talked about. Daryl and Nor say review. Wenchen, Martha, Rahila, if you guys are still there, do you have an opinion? Keep learning more new stuff about poems, or keep reviewing what we already did?
Review.
Yeah. Ruba, in the chat, I'm going to send you a video. I do want to review. I'll talk about it a little bit, but Ruba, here, I have a video that I was going to share today. Ruba, I put in this in the chat just for you. It's short and really good review of understanding the basics of English poems. Okay, let's look at one of the poems. No, I don't want to do that. That's too easy. Let's look at... What's a poem that I've been thinking about a lot this week? Oh, there's another.
Professor, I'm just a little confused about the meters. When it refer to meter in poems, what is the...
Well, that's what I was asking about. Like, so I'm not asking you to write about meter in the assignment. That's what I was saying. We haven't talked about meter too much. That's what I was going to introduce today. But again, rhythm, we have less than an hour, and rhythm and meter, those are big. They're big things. Okay. They're big things. I'll just say this. So I'll talk about, I have poems already for today, but let's practice what we've already done, and I'll talk about rhythm and meter a little bit, okay? And if you only learn one new thing about rhythm and meter, it's going to be this really important. I know exactly what I'll sort of talk about. Okay, so I've got some poems here. The first poem is over 400 years old, I think. It's a specific type of poem from Japan called a haiku. And you'll notice, right, it's very small. It's a very little poem here. So let's look at this poem and then talk about some of the things that we have done this semester. Like I said, consonants, assonants, alliteration, enjambment. We'll focus on that. So the poem is just this, 3 lines. An old, silent pond. A frog jumps into the pond, splash, silence again. When we have a little poem like this, there's a lot of stuff going on here, but it mostly has to do with the rhythm of the poem. Because if we look at this again, can we do too much analysis of the consonants, assonants, or alliteration? Do you guys see? I see splash and silence. Okay, splash, silence, SS. Is there anything else we notice about this poem, rhyme or of the sounds that we could talk about?
Maybe frog, pond is kind of better.
Yeah, it's like frog, pond, maybe, kind of, maybe. Yeah, I think I'm asking a sort of rhetorical question here, because with a poem like this, really the spotlight, you know, the headline, the main story of this poem is not really about individual sounds like we analyze for consonants, assonants, and alliteration. Japanese haiku is all about rhythm. And the way we do this in Japanese haiku is, a Japanese haiku is 3 lines, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. Right, and we started to talk about this last week, but this is what a Japanese haiku poem is. Syllables, my poor brain. An old, silent pond. 5. Oops. A frog jumps into the pond. 7. Splash, silence again. 5. And I wanted to show you Japanese haikus because they are a short and easy way to understand that sometimes when people are writing a poem, what all that they are really thinking about, really, or not all, but a main focus of what they're doing is syllables. And syllables in this case might as well be a synonym for rhythm here, right? And because the syllables guide the rhythm of a poem for 2 main reasons, right? Syllables are important for understanding rhythm for, like we said last week at the very end of class, how many syllables, right? Like I said, this entire genre of poems is all about just the number of syllables, right? An old silent pond, 5, a frog jumps into the pond, 7, splash, silence again, 5, 5, 7, 5, 5, 7, 5. So does this idea, even just the idea of the number of syllables in a line, does this make sense? Because if not, let's stop and talk about it, because the next thing is a little more complicated than just the number of syllables. So does the number, good, Daryl says thumbs up, anybody else?
Oh, Professor, but I have a question.
I'm ready.
Yeah, so with this kind of poem, like they just mainly wanted to do the syllables and not do the alliteration, the consonants, assonants. Like all they wanted to mainly imply is doing the number of syllables.
Yeah, I think that's right. I would put it just a little bit differently, just to say, I don't know if that's all the poets care about. That's kind of what I said, but I want to be more specific here. This genre, this type of poetry, the most important feature, the key feature, the defining feature of what this poem is rhythm, right? And how they determine the rhythm is 5, 7, 5. So the number of syllables, right? Now, some other poems, like you're going to see in the ESLW 350 document, there's a poem in there that is the rhythm is, it's important kind of, but rhyme is the only thing, right? It's rhyme, 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 rhyme. So different genres, different types of poems will emphasize or be defined by different aspects of poetry, right? And this type of genre, haiku, the reason that I'm using it today to introduce this idea is syllables are the most important thing in this type of genre of poetry, right? And to get a specific rhythm, they use syllables. Rhyme doesn't even really matter in haiku at all. It's all about the number of syllables in the line. Yeah. Okay, so does this make basic sense? Let's even just see, just as an example here, hope is the thing with feathers. How many syllables in this line? Hope is the thing with feathers.
Eight.
Marta says 8. It's not 8. Anybody else have a guess?
7.
7.
7. Rahila says 7. Yes.
Hope is
the thing with feathers. Feathers is the only 2-syllable word. So we've got 7 syllables in this line, right? Hope is the thing with feathers. What's another one? This was what we did last week, right? The William Stafford poem. When you wake to the dream of now, how many syllables in this line?
When you wake to the dream of now. 8.
Good. When you wake to the dream of now, right? 8. What's another famous example of a poem? There's a very famous poem in English that starts, this is the first line. I celebrate myself. How many syllables?
I celebrate.
6.
5, yeah, 5.
6.
I celebrate myself.
Why? Celebrate بحجم واحدة.
Celebrate. I celebrate myself. Now, again, this is another reason that I was sort of thinking, how much do I want to talk about rhythm here? Because as you can see, right, finding the number of syllables in a line is hard. It's hard for native English speakers, okay? It is. But especially for people who are learning English second, third, fourth, fifth language, this can feel really tricky, okay? So I don't want you guys to start to feel sad right now if you're like, oh my God, I'm never gonna be able to count syllables. I hate this, I don't wanna do it. That's why on the essay, right, I say, you don't have to do this. You don't, Martha's giving the laughing face. You don't have to do this. Because it's hard. It's hard for regular, native speakers. Okay, so, but at least this idea makes some sense, right? Every line has a number of syllables, right? And the number of syllables in the line is going to affect how we say the words and therefore the rhythm of the poem, right? Does that basic idea make sense? Okay. Now, the next thing that I'm going to talk about is really, really challenging, but I want to at least introduce the idea to you because I'm just curious. If I ask now, type in the chat or tell me, if I ask you guys, who is the most famous English language poet? When you think of English language poetry, do you guys think of anyone or know anyone in particular? Ruba says no. Anybody? Let me check the chat. My chat box is being weird, you guys. Rahila says no. Okay. Is Shakespeare a poet? There it is, Daryl. There it is. I think Shakespeare is, when people think of English literature, I think people think of Shakespeare. And Shakespeare is by far, I think, the most important English language poet in the history of the English language. And Shakespeare, of course, people think of him as a playwright, a person who wrote plays, but absolutely almost, not almost all, but a huge amount of Shakespeare's plays are written in poetry, right? Are written in a very, very specific type of English poetry. And that's what I'm going to show you, called iambic pentameter. Now, again, don't get scared by big vocab words here. Pentameter, you probably are already guessing. Iamb just refers to the syllables. And pentameter talks about 10. Shakespeare's most famous plays and some of his most famous lines are written in iambic pentameter. And I'm not going to teach you, this is not a Shakespeare class. I'm not going to test you on iambic pentameter. I'm using it as an example because actually, if you can understand this thing I'm going to teach you guys, then you will understand the heart of what rhythm means and where it comes from in poems. Because even though Shakespeare is very difficult in terms of vocabulary, hi Martha, thank you. Even though Shakespeare is very difficult in terms of vocabulary, there are always rules that he is following, and that can make life easy. So iambic pentameter is an example of rhythm because it just means 10 syllables in a line and the and then the rhythm of that line is stressed, is unstressed, stressed, right? So what this means is every line has 5 unstressed and 5 stressed syllables. I got to back up so we can see. So what this means is that every line in iambic pentameter for Shakespeare, there's 5 unstressed syllables, 5 stressed syllables, and they follow in a predictable rhythm. And in fact, what you often hear iambic pentameter get connected to is almost like the sound of a human heartbeat, right? So the heartbeat is dun dun, dun dun, dun dun, dun dun, dun dun, dun dun. And we get the same thing in Shakespeare. So if you look at this first line here, one of his, you know, many famous lines, but this is a very famous one. If music be the food of love, play on. Anyone, let's just start with meaning. What's the meaning here? We've got a big metaphor, but he's in just one line. What's this one line? If music be the food of love, play on. What do we think the meaning is? What words jump out to you then? What look like some important words or images or symbols in this line?
Love, I think.
Yep, I agree.
So
what else?
What I got it from this is the music be the food of love, play on. It's like the music give you energy, inspire you to have a better and happy life, I guess.
Well, and let's be more specific. It inspires what specifically? Give me one word.
Inspire your motivation. Inspire motivation.
Give me one word from the. Give me one word in this line. If music is the food of what?
No.
Eso, right? So this takes a little bit of metaphor here, right? But if we say, okay, love is a thing, or love is a human being that needs to eat to stay alive, right? What does love need? What does love eat? Love eats music, right? So this idea that like, wow, love is, so I think you're exactly correct, Nora. I want to be clear, but we could be even more specific, right? We have the word love. He's saying music feeds love, keep playing, let's keep loving, you know, so, but that feeling of a good life and happiness, you're exactly correct. But I think, you know, we've got some very specific words, even in just this one line, right? So if music be the food of love, play on. Now, if you look at this same, remember, iambic pentameter here, this is a specific type of rhythm. I'm not testing you on iambic pentameter. I am just using it as a way to talk about stressed and unstressed syllables. Remember, iambic pentameter means unstressed stress, unstressed stress, unstressed stress. And so that means we've got unstressed would be if, so that means music stressed, I think I messed this up. I think I got it backwards, excuse me. I'm sorry, I see what I did. If music be the food of love, play on. Forgive me. Right, so if music be the food of love, play on, right? And here's where the stressed syllables then come, right? And you see why this is easy with things like one syllable words, which we know are very common in English language poetry, right? Food, love, on. But where this gets much more difficult is when you're looking at words with more than one syllable, because that is really, honestly, where Shakespeare is a genius, right? Like he gave himself this set of rules to say, I need to use iambic pentameter. That means 10 syllables in every line, unstressed, stressed rhythm, right? But that gets much more difficult when you have longer words with more than one syllable, because you need to make sure that you put the words in the correct order. So if you look at this, for example, and then I was just sort of coming up with examples of how this changes. So let me see if you can hear the difference between Shakespeare's words and my paraphrasing, right? So if music be the food of love, play on. If music be the food of love, keep playing. We've got 11 syllables, right? And then if you look at this, in this type of word, for example, let's just look at this word playing. Where's the stress in this 2-syllable word? Is it playing or playing? So where's the stress in that word? First syllable or second syllable?
Playing. First.
Second, I think.
It is the first, Ruba, you are correct. Yeah, playing. It's playing, not playing. Right, so even if you said, imagine you want to keep the first 8 syllables the same, right? And then we want to add another syllable, so that makes things different even. But this word playing, really, Shakespeare could not have used that word playing at the end of the line because that word doesn't end with a stressed syllable, right? Does that make sense? This is about as deep as we'll go because it is a big idea to understand, but you have to understand that each word in any language, of course, right? Every language, this idea of stressed and unstressed syllables in the rhythm of a poem, this is true for analyzing poems in any language. Of course, what makes this challenging for learners is you might not be confident about where the stress in the syllable is. And again, that's why I don't test you on that stuff in this class. But I need you to understand, or I hope you will understand. Words by themselves have stressed and unstressed syllables, right? When the poet is thinking about creating rhythm in a line, the poet is thinking about where to put the word based on where the stressed syllables in that word happen in the line, right? So instead of if music be the food of love, play on, the line ends with a stressed syllable. If music be the food of love, keep playing. And now the line ends with an unstressed syllable. Now that might be totally okay, right? That could totally be fine, but it doesn't fit with iambic pentameter. And what I'm suggesting to you is that will give the listener and the reader a different feeling, right? When a line ends with an unstressed syllable versus when it ends with a stressed syllable. All of that affects what the reader and listener will feel as the rhythm of the poem. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So let's look at another one. I just wanted to keep sort of looking at weird examples with this one famous line here. So we could do the same thing. Music. Oops. And I want to be clear here. Hopefully it's clear for people who are with me, but if you're watching on the recording, what I'm doing here, the bold and underline means these are the stressed, right? These are the stressed syllables. So remember, iambic pentameter, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, well, I think probably the opposite. Unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, unstressed, stressed, dum dum, dum dum, dum dum, dum dum. So if you look at this, if music is what love eats, keep playing. I'm just trying to show you sort of if we keep the same idea but change the words, how much this changes the rhythm of the line, right? So music is love, but now eats is not going to be stressed, and it's a one syllable word. And if we follow iambic pentameter, we jump from love eats, keep, right? And now in this sort of weird sentence, you can sort of see what happens if you're not thinking about the stressed syllables in the line, you might put a word like keep, and in this case, keep is stressed because where it comes in the line, right? But you put keep next to the word playing, and the word playing by itself, 2 syllables, and we stress the first syllable. So instead, we get 2 stressed syllables together. And again, that might be okay, but it's not iambic pentameter. And I'll just read these 3 lines the best that I can to show you the difference between these words. So again, these rhythms. So first one here. If music be the food of love, play on. If music be the food of love, keep playing. If music is what love eats, keep playing. Right? And they might feel like subtle differences. And when you're listening to a native English speaker, you know, think of another class that you're taking, right? Right now, whether the native English speaker knows it or not, the rhythm of their language is being affected by the number of syllables that they're using and the way that those words are organized for stressed and unstressed syllables. And oftentimes for native speakers, for non-native speakers, what can make it challenging to listen to a native speaker is if that speaker is not emphasizing, is not stressing syllables clearly enough, right? Like I think if you are listening to this and you like, or you feel like you can understand me when I'm speaking, I think this is something I tried really hard when I started teaching language learners, is to really think about the way that I'm speaking, the way that I'm emphasizing certain words, and the rhythm of my speech, because this is really an important part of listening and speaking, right? And we do this in our everyday life, right? What a poet does, I think, what a poet does is think about language deeply and in different ways than sort of everyday speech, right? But I do want to be clear here. Why am I saying this? Is because rhythm and stressed and unstressed syllables are a huge part of everyday English use, right? And I'm suggesting if you have a hard time understanding a native English speaker or a teacher at ARC, it might be because they're using the rhythm of language in a weird way or a different way, or they're not paying attention to the rhythm of language, right? But what a poet does is, you know, think about this maybe too much, but think about, okay, there's, you know, multiple syllables in that word. What's the stressed syllable? How should I put those words together? Because all of this affects how the listener understands the rhythm of the line, right? There's another famous, I think that might be too much for you guys. You can look at it if you want. But for example, this is from A Midsummer Night's Dream. When I was in college, this is the line that my professor taught. This is the line that he used to teach us iambic pentameter. This line, I am amazed and know not what to say. So I'm not trying to trick you here. This shouldn't require too much thinking. I'll tell you again, this is a line of iambic pentameter. I am amazed and know not what to say. So I'll show you again. How many syllables are in this line of iambic pentameter? Iambic pentameter is always 10 syllables, right? So this line, I am amazed and know not what to say. We've got unstressed, stressed, right? Oops, excuse me. I am amazed and know not what to say. Right? And think about if we did the same thing we did with the examples above. Even if we just change this slightly, right? We get the same beginning here. Okay, stressed, unstressed, 1 syllable words. Okay, now 2 syllable words. Amazed. So again, just to show you how this changes things, I am amazed and know not what to say. Perfect iambic pentameter, stressed, unstressed syllables. He's only got 1 2-syllable word, but he puts it in the line where I have I, unstressed, am, stressed. Is the first syllable of the word. It is unstressed in the word by itself. So Shakespeare puts it into a position in the line where there's an unstressed syllable. And mazed, the stressed part of that 2-syllable word, comes at a point of stress in the line. But this changes in my weird example, right? I am amazed, but I don't know what to say. And you also notice, yeah, that's all I want to say. That's all I want to say. I'm talking too much now. I'm talking too much. Because I love this stuff too much. Does this kind of make sense a little bit? Stressed and unstressed syllables and how they come together to create rhythm. Good. Let's look at one of the examples before we finish. Let's look at one of the poems that we talked about the first week. Hope is, now, I'll tell you right now, This is not iambic pentameter, okay? Emily Dickinson is not forcing herself to follow a structure, a specific rhythm, and meter. Nora was talking about meter. Meter is, iambic pentameter is a meter, right? That means specific rules. And there's all types of this, right? A haiku is a type of meter, right? A haiku means rules. I'm writing haiku, that means 5 syllable, 7 syllable, 5 syllable. I'm writing iambic pentameter meter. That means 10 syllables in each line, unstressed, stressed rhythm, right? Emily Dickinson is not using a specific meter, but because she is a genius poet, her poems still have a beautiful rhythm because of the way that she puts the words in a specific order. So let's just look at this first line. Hope is the thing with feathers. We already said, all I'm going to do first is underline the 2-syllable words. Perches, 2 syllables. Sings the tune without 2 syllables and never stops at all. Let's just look at the first stanza. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. The rest of these are 1-syllable words. So feathers, is the stress on the first syllable or the second syllable in feathers?
The first.
Ruba says first. Do we agree? Can I get a second person to agree with Ruba? Feathers or feathers?
First one.
Feathers.
Yeah, that's feathers. Good. And perches, first syllable or second syllable?
Purchase. I think second.
I'll give you the options again. Perches, perches. Purchase.
Purchase first.
Good. Purchase. Yes. And without, is that without or, oh, I did it backwards, I'm sorry. Is that without or without?
The second one, without.
Yes. Good. Okay. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Okay. So the other thing that you start to notice is when poets, even if they're not following a specific meter, right? Even if it's not like a math equation, even if they're not saying this must be 10 syllables, each word in the line is in relationship to the other word based on this idea of stressed and unstressed syllables. So hope is the thing with feathers. Where do we think we're going to stress these different 1-syllable words, right? So are we going to, how can I ask this? Let me do this. Ruba, since you're there and unmuted, will you just read the first line for us? Just the first line.
Hope is the thing with feathers.
Good. Anybody else want to read the first line? Okay, Ruba, I'll ask you then. Read it one more time.
Hope is the...
You're perfect. You're doing great.
Okay. Hope is the thing with feathers.
Good. And do you feel, now I've asked you to read it twice, can you feel what are the words, what syllables and words, what's giving you, remember we said stressed and unstressed, right? Which words are you stressing? Can you feel it when you say it, or are you making a choice
yes,
about it?
Think and the.
Good.
The TH, I feel the TH because when I say it, not there is a continuous in saying, there is some pauses.
Good, I love it. Okay, so Ruba's saying is and thing, is that right?
Mm.
Now, I will tell you, we might read this in different ways, so we could talk about this a little bit differently. Some people might say, oh, it's really important that hope is actually being stressed because it's the first word. Okay, maybe. But notice what Ruba did there is genius. And well, Ruba is responding to Emily Dickinson's genius, because what you notice is even if we don't have iambic pentameter, right? Even if we don't have rules, a specific meter, The human being does not want to do unstressed syllables, like 5 unstressed syllables next to each other or 5 stressed syllables next to each other, right? Ruba sort of chose to emphasize is, then unstressed, the stress thing, unstressed with. And because we have a 2-syllable word at the end of the line and the syllable gets stressed, the first syllable gets stressed. So in a certain way, the reader of this poem is kind of working backwards, right? They're going, okay, and none of this is really active, right? This is just what happens when you really feel the rhythm of a language. Okay, the last word in this line is 2 syllables and the first syllable is stressed. So very likely the word right before fe is unstressed, right? Because fe is gonna be stressed, right? Fe, the first syllable in the word feathers, that's the stressed syllable. So that the words that the poet will put around that 2-syllable word should hopefully have something to do with the rhythm of the line, right? So hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. Now, maybe you say, okay, is, maybe that's not as important. I could say hope is the thing with feathers. But again, 50-50, right? This is not iambic pentameter. It's not me giving you a quiz, right? Like, it's not like, okay, in a Shakespearean poem, you know, the second syllable on that line, whether it's one word or a long word with more than 1 syllable, that second syllable in the line will be stressed, right? This is not like that. The rhythm of the poem kind of bubbles up from the words that the poet chooses to use, right? And again, another thing that you saw in Grossman's book is English is unique, German too. English is unique with so many 1-syllable words. So if you put a lot of 1-syllable words into a line, that's fine. I mean, that can be very, very powerful, but you have to understand that the speaker is going to sort of create a rhythm for that line, based on their knowledge of the language, based on the meaning of the poem, maybe, or that's where rhyme comes in, right? Like if there's no clear meter, then rhyme is going to be important, right? And we talked about this a lot with this poem last time, right? Where we talked about storm and warm, right? Herd and bird. Sweetest and sweetest. 2-syllable word. 2-syllable word. Little. 2-syllable word. Notice again, even in these 2-syllable words, you guys, that could have bashed the little bird. Bash, stressed, the unstressed, because little, just the word little, the first syllable in this word gets stressed. So it makes perfect sense for the poet to put an unstressed word or to put a small, tiny word like an article in there. And the speaker's just going to sort of blow through it and go quickly to get on to the next stressed syllable, right? Yeah. Ruba, we got to talk about rhythm a little bit. So what do you think, Ruba? You see why this is challenging, right?
Mm.
But does it make a little, even start to make sense? I'll say this to everybody, again, whether you're here with me or watching the video. This is the thing I want you to understand after this class. Where did I type it? This. Oh, let me do this. So 2 things to think about for the syllables. And like I said, this is my very quick, shorty way to think about rhythm in English, well, in all poetry, but in English. What I want you to think about, aside from rhyme, and when you talk about rhyme, you guys, if you want to analyze rhyme, just do that using consonants, assonance, and alliteration, what we talked about for the first couple weeks, okay? So rhyme and rhythm do go together. I know we talked about that, Ruba, and I want to be very clear about that. But the other thing that I'm planting this seed in your mind, if you ever, you know, if you never talk about poetry again, okay, at least you've learned one thing, or if you keep talking about it, when we talk about rhythm, it's really important to understand that there's the rhythm of an individual word, right? In an individual word, there are, let's say, what's a good 3-syllable? So for example, independence. How many syllables in the word independence? Four syllables in this word. And the stress is here on this third syllable, right? Independence, independence. So the thing, just as that's an example to understand, words by themselves have a stressed syllable. And that's really important to understand that whatever that stressed syllable is by the word in and of itself, that has a big connection to the rhythm of a poem. And then on the line, it's important to understand the total number of syllables, both stressed and unstressed. And this is what I mean, this is what we mean when we talk about rhythm in poetry, that we have to understand that words, you know, individual words are like, I don't know, they're like the royalty, you know what I mean? They're the king and queen of poems, right? The poet should be choosing words very, very, very carefully, because it's not just that the image or the meaning of the word is important, it's that the inherent sound in the word. And now you guys understand it's not just the consonant sounds or the vowel sounds, it's also the number of syllables in the word, how long the word is, where's the stress in the syllable. All of these things are really, really important for the poet to think about and understand as they're writing their poem, because they rule rhythm. They rule rhythm, right? We could all see an example of poems that rhyme, but they still might not, it might not feel like a good poem. It feels like a poem because the poet got the rhyming in there, right? But the rhythm can be all over the place, right? And maybe that'd be a good thing to do next week, is show you what I think would be an example of bad poetry. I mean, it might rhyme, but it still is going to be bad because the rhythm is not natural. Again, I just think, I won't scare you guys anymore with Shakespeare, but I think the reason I wanted to talk about iambic pentameter is because the most natural rhythm for the human being, like we saw in the videos last week, right, is the ocean, the tides of the ocean, and the heart and your heartbeat. Those are the rhythms that kind of like have defined human life. Think of the rhythm of the ocean for millions of years, right? And for the human heartbeat too. So that natural rhythm of bum bum or bum bum, right? Different cultures will perceive stressed and unstressed, which comes first. That's totally fine. But that bum bum, bum bum, bum bum, bum bum is very pleasing. It's very pleasing to the human being. So when poems rhyme but don't have that nice rhythm, it can still feel really strange or really awkward, really uncomfortable. So. That's all. Did I scare you? Did I scare you, Ruba? Is that too much?
So the last words in each line, it will be, for example, decide and inside. This will be under rhyme.
Yeah, for now, I think so. In the voice poem, for example.
Yes.
Let's look at those and then get out of here and then be done for today. Let's look at. I need to look at the line. Just I want to make sure I see how many syllables are in the line before I answer your question, Ruba. Inside and decide, right?
And then you have long and wrong.
Yeah. Long and wrong is easy because you have two one-syllable words on the end of the line, right? All day long, this is wrong.
So they are belong to the rhyme, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think even more so rhyme, because you get long and wrong. What you could say, if you wanted to analyze this poem for both rhyme and rhythm, how you see how they go together in your example, Ruba, decide is 2 syllables, right? And where's the stress? First syllable or second syllable?
Second.
Second.
Yes, absolutely. And how about inside? How many syllables?
2 syllable and inside. So this side.
Perfect, Ruba. Absolutely perfect. And so if you wanted to analyze that as only pure rhyme, you could do that too. But notice here we have two two-syllable words. Both of these two-syllable words have the stressed syllable as the second syllable, and the poet chooses to put those words with a stressed second syllable at the end of the line. Okay, so they also rhyme. They do also rhyme, but those would be examples of how rhyme and rhythm go together. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that's a little bit different than something like long and wrong, where they definitely rhyme. The poet has put these one-syllable words at the end of the line. Usually, I mean, very often in American poetry, the last line will be stressed, although in Jamit, Sazira, that can change, okay? But it's not as obvious an example of rhythm and syllables here because the poet is getting that rhyme, that nice rhyme, with two one-syllable words. And so doesn't have to think about stressed or unstressed rhythm within the word itself. He can just choose where to put it. It's a male poet. He could just choose where to put it in the line. Whereas decide and inside, he had to consider, okay, I've got words with more than one syllable. Well, where's the stress in that syllable? Ooh, okay, so I'm gonna put two two-syllable words together and both of them will have the stress on the second syllable. And now those second syllables even have the same vowel and consonant rhyme sounds. So you really get that sense of rhythm in a sort of even more clear way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, great question, Ruba. Thank you. Great example too, great example. Cool. Questions. I think maybe next week we could just do like a question and answer. We can just talk about poems. Next week, I won't introduce anything new. Okay, you guys, we'll just talk about poems and help you get ready to hopefully feel confident for the essay. Yeah, but any questions about anything we talked about today about the poetry project? Because I think we should wrap it up for today. Cool. Ruba, thanks for saying you wanted to talk about rhythm. I was scared to talk about it because I know it can be really complicated, right? It can be really complicated. But again, that's why I'll say last time, if you're like, Jeff, I hate this, I don't ever want to do this again, that's fine. But if you leave this class and you understand that words have stressed syllables and where the stress in that syllable where the stress in that word comes from is really important for poetic rhythm, that's enough for you to understand from this class. That's enough. That's all I got. I think I'll see some of you tomorrow. I know that people signed up to talk about your essays, which is great. But if anything comes up in the meantime, just let me know. I'll be here. And I'll see you next week, and we'll just do kind of like a workshop or question and answer session to get you ready before the first draft is due.
Bye.
Bye, Ruba.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
See you.
Bye, Professor.
Bye, Daryl. Okay, stay warm.
Thank you. Bye.
Sure.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Rahila.